In 1986, a merchant in Aleppo, Syria, made one honorable decision to help his lifelong friend, a choice that would set in motion 20 years of betrayal, heartbreak, and an ending so unexpected it would prove that fate has a sense of irony, darker and more beautiful than any human could imagine. Welcome to Arabian Stories and Dilemmas, where we bring you authentic stories and dilemmas from the Arabian world. Because every culture has its own drama, and ours comes with extra spice. If you love stories filled with deep emotions, tough choices, and rich culture, you're in the right place. Keep in mind, Western and Eastern cultures are very different, so some situations might feel unfamiliar or surprising. Let's keep an open mind and respect every culture's unique ways. Now, sit back, enjoy these stories with us. In 1986, Abu Ayyub was a respected merchant in Aleppo, not wealthy, but comfortable, with a few shops and a solid reputation. He was the kind of man whose word was final. No questions, no arguments. His first wife had given him a son named Ayyub before dying young, and after remarrying, he'd had more children. The whole family respected his authority without question. By now, Ayyub had grown into a decent young man of about 20. Abu Ayyub was proud of him, and their relationship seemed solid, built on that old-school foundation where father knows best and son obeys. One random day, Abu Ayyub suddenly told his second wife, "Get your coat, get in the car, and bring Ayyub. We're going to Latakia." "Why? What's there?" she asked, confused. "Just get in the car, both of you now." No explanations. That was Abu Ayyub's way. They drove to Latakia, where Abu Ayyub had a lifelong friend, closer than a brother since childhood. When they arrived, the friend was thrilled to see them and threw together an amazing dinner. Everyone was having a great time, but Abu Ayyub's wife and Ayyub still had no clue why they were there. Then, right in the middle of dinner, Abu Ayyub dropped his bomb. "We came to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage for our son Ayyub." Ayyub nearly choked. "Dad, what? I'm not ready for this." "Not another word. This is my oldest friend, and I've decided you're marrying his daughter. Don't you dare say anything else." Poor Ayyub sat there, mortified. Even his stepmother was shocked, but nobody dared question Abu Ayyub's decision. That evening, they went to a beautiful spot by the sea. The families let Ayyub and the girl sit together to get acquainted, though both were painfully shy. During this romantic seaside meeting, the families made their plans. Courthouse tomorrow morning, make it official, then straight back to Aleppo. Everything done in one day. Ayyub was panicking inside. Tomorrow? Everything's getting finalized tomorrow? He figured maybe he could go along with it and convince his dad to slow things down later. The next morning, every time Ayyub tried to speak up, his father shut him down. They went to the courthouse, made it legal, then to a restaurant to celebrate. Ayyub and his new bride sat at one table while the families celebrated at another. As they talked, Ayyub started to relax. The girl was beautiful, intelligent, and well-spoken. He began thinking, "Dad knows what he's doing. I trust his judgment." But something still felt off, like his father was hiding something important. During their conversation, Ayyub noticed the girl looked fuller around the middle. Curiosity got the better of him, and he carefully asked about her figure. The girl went quiet, then hit him with devastating news. "Ayyub, I'm pregnant. Don't you know?" "What?" Ayyub spun around to look at his father. The moment Abu Ayyub heard pregnant, he rushed over and slapped Ayyub so hard he hit the ground. "Shut your mouth. Don't say a word tonight. We'll talk later." Through tears, the girl explained everything. A family relative had assaulted her and fled the country, leaving her pregnant and disgraced. Her desperate father had gone to Abu Ayyub for help. Abu Ayyub had proposed his solution. "We'll protect her honor. My son will marry her. We'll register the baby under his name, and after she gives birth, she can return to her family and get divorced. It's better than scandal. This was Abu Ayyub's way of helping his dearest friend, pure honor and loyalty. He'd expected his son to say, "Whatever you need, Dad," but he'd never anticipated Ayyub's shock and resistance. They completed the wedding ceremony anyway, took photos to make it look real, and drove back to Aleppo. During the drive, Abu Ayyub explained, "I need this favor from you. We're protecting this girl's honor. Think of her as my daughter. What made me do this was honor and loyalty." Ayyub stayed silent the whole ride. But the moment they got home and he unlocked the front door, he took off running and disappeared completely. Abu Ayyub looked around frantically. Where'd he go? The kid had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Abu Ayyub searched everywhere, relatives, friends, Ayyub's buddies, but nobody had seen him. Remember, this was the 1980s. No cell phones, no easy way to track someone down. A year passed. Then 2 years. Abu Ayyub was heartbroken, terrified that something terrible had happened to his son. Then one day, a relative mentioned seeing Ayyub in military service in Deir ez-Zor, a city far from Aleppo. Abu Ayyub couldn't believe it. His son had been alive and working this whole time. Abu Ayyub drove to Deir ez-Zor and found his missing son. He broke down crying and hugged him. "Son, I felt like I'd wronged you. I never expected you to react like this. I thought you'd help me." But Ayyub's response was cold. "Dad, how could you get me involved with a girl like that?" Abu Ayyub slapped him again. "Don't talk about that girl that way. She's a victim, and I consider her my daughter." "What about what's in her belly?" "She had the baby. A girl. We registered her in your name. See? Now you've stuck me with some illegitimate kid registered as mine. Why me? Why can't I live my life normally?" Ayyub's coldness and cruelty broke Abu Ayyub's heart completely. "I regret every minute I spent looking for you," the father said. "You're not worthy of being called my son. You've disgraced me." Ayyub called after him, "I don't want to see you again. You're not my family anymore." They never spoke again. Abu Ayyub went home with a broken heart and never told anyone what happened. He helped the girl through her pregnancy, registered the baby under Ayyub's name, and when she was ready, let her return to her family. Eventually, Abu Ayyub died in 2009. When Abu Ayyub passed away, Ayyub came for his inheritance. But even at his father's funeral, he spoke badly about the old man. "I still haven't forgiven him," he told his half-brothers. This pushed one half-brother over the edge. He slapped Ayyub right there. "You're talking about our father. Dad was the most honorable man alive. What he did took more honor than most men have today." They fought, and Ayyub left forever, saying he hated everything that reminded him of his father. Ayyub used his inheritance to start a business and got married. Things went well for a while, and he completely forgot about the girl registered under his name, Farah. Meanwhile, Abu Ayyub's second wife had raised Farah as if she were her own daughter, providing her with love, care, and a proper upbringing. When Farah completed high school with excellent grades, she began asking questions about her father. She had been told that her parents were divorced and that her father was alive, living his own life with a new wife and children somewhere else. She had no knowledge of the true circumstances of her birth or the fact that Ayyub was not her biological father. After graduating from high school, Farah became increasingly insistent about wanting to meet her father. She expressed the belief that the divorce wasn't his fault and that she needed and deserved to have her father in her life. Her adoptive mother became frightened by these requests, worried about what might happen if Farah actually tried to contact Ayyub, or if the truth about her origins came to light. To distract Farah from these desires and give her new opportunities, her mother arranged for her to go to Canada to live with relatives and attend university there. The plan worked perfectly. Farah became completely absorbed in this new world, focusing on her studies and adapting to life in a completely different culture and environment. She excelled academically and eventually graduated from university with honors. During this same period, Farah's maternal grandfather passed away and left the family a substantial fortune, which meant that her mother was financially comfortable and could easily support her daughter's education and living expenses in Canada. Back in Syria, Ayub had started a business partnership with several associates. When the political and economic situation in Syria began to deteriorate after 2011, even though Ayub's business was performing reasonably well under the circumstances, his business partners decided to betray him. They systematically stole all of his money and assets, leaving him financially ruined. Ayub refused to accept this theft quietly. He fought back aggressively, threatening his former partners, filing lawsuits against them, getting into physical confrontations, and spending considerable time at police stations trying to recover his stolen money through legal channels. His persistent efforts to reclaim his wealth and seek justice eventually convinced his former partners that the simplest solution to their problem would be to eliminate Ayub permanently. They arranged to have him murdered. With Ayub's death, his money was completely gone, and his children became orphans with no one capable of caring for them properly. Since Ayub had deliberately cut himself off from his extended family years earlier, his children had been living in a rented villa, completely unaware that their father was merely a tenant rather than the owner. Ayub had kept all his capital tied up in his business ventures, leaving no liquid assets for his family's security. After several months, when the rent payments stopped coming, the landlords evicted Ayub's children from the villa. The children were shocked to discover that they didn't actually own the house they had been living in. They had assumed their father owned the property. Ayub's widow gathered up all the children and took them to her own family, seeking help and shelter. However, her relatives told her bluntly, "We're poor ourselves. We can barely feed our own kids, let alone yours. Take them to your husband's family in Aleppo. Let them live with their grandfather's family where they belong." So the widow packed up all of Ayub's children and traveled to Aleppo, specifically to Abu Ayub's old family home. Although Abu Ayub had been dead for several years by this time, Ayub's half-brothers were still living in the ancestral family house. The half-brothers were completely shocked by this unexpected visit. It was the first time they had ever seen their brother's children, or even knew what they looked like. Through conversations with the widow, they learned the complete story: how Ayub had lost all his money to dishonest business partners, how he had been swindled and ultimately murdered, how the court case was making no progress, and how desperate the family's current situation had become. After discussing the situation among themselves, the half-brothers made their decision. "It's God's will. Stay here with us. God will provide for all of us." However, the practical reality was extremely challenging. Syria's economic situation was dire, with very few job opportunities available, and even those who managed to find work could barely earn enough to support themselves. The financial burden of suddenly supporting Ayub's entire family became overwhelming for the half-brothers. Some of them were already struggling financially themselves, while others were barely making ends meet with their own families. All of Abu Ayub's inheritance money had long since been spent, and the recent troubles in Syria had destroyed many families' financial stability. But help came from the most unexpected source imaginable. Farah, now well established in Canada, began experiencing strong feelings of homesickness and started calling her mother frequently with the same request. "Please, I want to see my brothers and sisters." Her mother responded, "Okay, let me find out where your father lives, and I'll let you know." The mother had been afraid to contact Ayub directly, uncertain how he might react given his original rejection of the entire arrangement years earlier. However, when she made inquiries, she received the shocking news that Ayub was dead and that his children were now living in their grandfather's old house in Aleppo. The entire situation had changed completely. Ayub's children had always believed that Farah was their sister, and they had absolutely no knowledge of her real story or the fact that she wasn't actually related to them by blood. Similarly, Farah had no idea that Ayub wasn't her biological father. She still believed the story she had been told about her parents being divorced. When her mother delivered the devastating news, "Your father died, may he rest in peace, and your half-siblings are living in your grandfather's house," poor Farah was heartbroken. She cried extensively, devastated that this information had been hidden from her for so many years and that she had never gotten the opportunity to see her father before his death. She had no way of knowing that he wasn't really her father at all. Farah managed to establish contact with her siblings, and they were amazed to finally connect with her. They knew they had a sister somewhere, but had never known her story or how to reach her. When Farah learned about her siblings' financial struggles and discovered that their father had lost everything before his death, she immediately took action to help them. Farah sent money to her adoptive mother and instructed her, "Use my savings from Canada to buy my siblings a house in Aleppo." "Let my siblings live in a house I'm buying with my own money," she declared. She purchased a house for them and began providing regular financial support to all of them, both her siblings and Ayub's widow. She became their primary financial provider and lifeline. Her own situation was excellent. She had earned a good degree, secured a well-paying job in Canada, and was thoroughly established in her new country. Additionally, her mother had inherited substantial money from her own father, so they had more than enough resources to help. To this day, Farah continues to support her siblings and Ayub's widow financially and emotionally, completely unaware that they are not actually related to her by blood. She believes she is helping her true family members during their time of need. The most remarkable irony of this entire story is that Ayub had originally been terrified that registering this girl under his name would mean she would eventually inherit his money and reduce the inheritance available to his real biological children. He had been consumed with fear that she would take wealth away from his legitimate family. But observe how God's plan unfolded. Ayub's money was stolen by his business partners. He was murdered by those same partners, and the girl he had been so afraid would take his wealth became the one supporting and providing for his wife and children. Through divine intervention, she became their guardian angel, their protector and provider when they had nowhere else to turn. This is the complete story, a testament to how fear of the wrong things can destroy family relationships, while unexpected kindness from unlikely sources can provide salvation. Sometimes the very thing we run from in terror becomes the thing that ultimately saves us, and sometimes our greatest fears blind us to the blessings that God has planned for our future.